And so the narcissist never succeeded to develop a self. There's nothing there. It's emptiness. It's been compared to a black hole.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's very special broadcast. My name is Maia, and today we dive into one of the most complex and fascinating topics in psychology, narcissistic personality disorder. But what makes this broadcast, I think, truly extraordinary is our guest, Professor Sam Wagner. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And you're a pioneering researcher in personality disorders and the author of the groundbreaking books Malignant Self-Love, Diary of a Narcissist, and too many books, I think. And it's a privilege to have you here. And welcome again. I will start from a very basic question because your work has provided a deep understanding of narcissism and its impacts on relationships and mental health. And you inspired countless people worldwide, and including me, of course, to see topic from a very different side of perspective. So, how a narcissist perceives the world and what are the basic traits?
A narcissist does not perceive the world. That is the core problem in narcissism. The narcissist is incapable of perceiving other people as separate or external. The narcissist perceives other people as if they were internal objects within the narcissist's mind, as if they were avatars or snapshots, photographs. Then he does not perceive other people as if they are out there with their own dreams and wishes and hopes and emotions and separate existence and personal autonomy and agency and independence. The narcissist doesn't perceive people this way. And because everyone is an internal object, the narcissist uses other people as extensions. The narcissist regards other people as instruments, as objects, because they are internal. They belong to him. He owns them. They are in his mind. They're guests. They're like guests in a hotel, they're in his mind. So the narcissist has severe difficulties to empathize with other people, to read other people appropriately, to decipher cues, social cues, sexual cues, to understand other people, to relate to emotions and affects. And in this sense, the narcissist is very reminiscent, reminds us of someone with autism spectrum disorder. Because in both cases, there is a failure to decode other people and to behave appropriately, accordingly. And there is a diminished capacity for empathy. So this is the answer to your question as to how the narcissist perceives the outside world. As to the second half of your question, the traits of the narcissist. The traits are listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual and in the International Classification of Diseases. These are the two diagnostic manuals that we use. But I think these two manuals are missing the point. They're describing behaviors. They're describing ways in which the narcissist functions, especially socially. They're describing the impacts that the narcissist has on other people. And to some extent, they describe some basic emotions, such as, for example, envy. But they completely fail, to understand the internal world of the narcissist. The first thing we need to understand is that pathological narcissism, because there is healthy narcissism. Healthy narcissism is good for you. When you have healthy narcissism, you have self-esteem, you have self-confidence, and to a large extent, self-awareness. But when your narcissism is pathological, malignant, cancerous, like a cancer cell compared to a healthy cell, when you have malignant narcissism or pathological narcissism, then it is the outcome of a disruption in the formation of the self. Something happened when you were becoming you, when you developed your identity, your core, your sense of continuity, the knowledge that you are and who you are. Something happened in this process and it was disrupted in the middle. And so the narcissist never succeeded to develop a self or the equivalent of a self, a core, an identity. There's nothing there. It's emptiness. And it's been compared to a black hole. So this is a core clinical feature of narcissism and of borderline personality disorder as well. The second core feature I already mentioned, the narcissist is unable to distinguish between external objects, especially people, and internal objects. There's a total confusion, and it is very reminiscent of psychosis, because in psychosis, the psychotic person is unable to tell the difference between the external world and the internal world. The psychotic person has a voice in his mind, and he says, it's not in my mind, it's coming from the outside. Mm. It's the same with the narcissist. There is a total confusion. The third clinical feature of narcissism is discrepancies and dissonances. The narcissism is like put together wrongly, a work in progress that went badly. It's the parts don't fit, nothing fits. And so, for example, the narcissist internally has very low self-esteem and sense of self-worth. And yet the narcissist presents a facade of very high self-esteem. So there's a difference between what we call implicit self-esteem and explicit self-esteem. That's one example of a discrepancy, but there are many, many other dissonances. Many, many things in the narcissist don't fit together. It's like a badly organized kaleidoscope. And these discrepancies lead to extreme dysfunction. And to compensate for all this mess, the narcissist creates a narrative, a story, a paracosm, an alternative reality, a virtual reality, in which the narcissist is the exact opposite. He is godlike. In that virtual reality, in that narrative, he is godlike. He is a perfect entity. He knows everything, omniscient. He is capable of anything. He's all-powerful. He's omnipotent. He's a god. And so this is a compensatory facade. And we say that pathological narcissism is a compensatory mechanism. It compensates for something. This is, in a nutshell, this is what a narcissist is.
Last week, I watched videos of you.
Oh my God, and you survived.
And still, I'm
a very strong woman.
Oh, yes. I can't understand everything, but I can imagine them because it's a very strange or mind-boggling thing. Now, I want to talk about the shared fantasy. In one of your videos, you told that he just has internal shared fantasy. And after one snapshot, he never sees you and he never or she interacts with you. And he is just talking with the narrative inside his brain. Mm-hmm. That's why they manipulate you to obey the internal object. Manipulation, introjection, projection just works for the internal work. Can we talk about the shared fantasy?
Yes, but I think we are confusing two concepts here. The shared fantasy is one thing and the introjection is another thing. So let's start with introjection. When the narcissist sees you for the first time, he immediately analyzes whether you can be helpful and beneficial. In this sense, the narcissist resembles a psychopath. Psychopaths do exactly the same. So as an initial evaluation, can you, for example, provide narcissistic supply? Attention, admiration, adulation, and so on. Can you or will you agree to participate in the shared fantasy? For example, as an intimate partner, a girlfriend or something. Are you able to provide the 4 S's, what I call the 4 S's? Are you able to provide sex, services, safety, and supply? So there is an initial evaluation. It's a little like a job interview. There is an ongoing job interview that you're not aware of. And the narcissist constructs a profile of you. And the profile consists mainly of your vulnerabilities. The narcissist uses cold empathy. Narcissist is unable to empathize with you emotionally. He has no affective empathy. Mm-hmm. If he sees that you are sad, he will not feel sad. But he is able to empathize with you cognitively and reflexively. In other words, and this is what I call cold empathy. He will look at you, he will say you are sad, So the fact that he's able to recognize that you are sad, that is cognitive empathy. And then maybe his face will also become sad. He will imitate you, he will reflect you. And this is called reflexive empathy. But he will not feel sad for you. It's totally cold. It's like a predator imitating the prey in nature. So then he will say, she's sad. That is a vulnerability. That's a weakness. That gives me power. I can now use the fact that she's sad to get something from her. Until now, the narcissist is identical to the psychopath. It's the same process. But now they diverge. What the narcissist does, he takes a photo of you, a snapshot. And then he internalizes this photo. He stores it in the archive, like saving a file. So he internalizes the photo. This process is known in psychology as introjection. He creates an introject of you, avatar. And then he continues to interact with the internal object, with the snapshot, with the photograph, not with you. As far as he's concerned, you're gone. You no longer exist. Everything from now on is happening in his mind. So this is the introjection. As he continues to interact with this image of you in his mind, with your representation in his mind, as the time passes, there are conflicts between the real you and this image.
Yeah.
Because you have your independence, you make decisions, you have your own friends, you go on a trip, you have your job, and so on. And so there's a lot of tension and conflict between who you truly are in reality out there and the way you are represented in the narcissist's mind. This creates what is known as dissonance. So you become more and more dissonant. You become more and more unpleasant for the narcissist. Until at some point, the dissonance leads to devaluation. I will discuss it in a minute in the shared fantasy. So this is introjection. The shared fantasy is something completely different. The shared fantasy is a fantastic narrative, very reminiscent of a movie. It's a fantastic narrative, and in this narrative, the narcissist is perfect, he's godlike in this narrative. That's his grandiosity. He is cognitively distorted. He doesn't perceive the world correctly. He has a self-concept which is totally crazy and inflated and, But he needs people to tell him that his false self, that his self-concept and self-image, or self-perception, which are totally crazy, he needs people to tell him that he's not crazy, that they're real. So he goes around and he finds, for example, an intimate partner. Now, her job is to enter the fantasy of the narcissist and to collaborate with the narcissist and to make the narcissist believe that the fantasy is reality, not a fantasy. So the shared fantasy is shared. It is the narcissist and the other party, could be intimate partner, could be girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, the narcissist's children, the narcissist's best friend, whoever is in the fantasy with the narcissist shares the fantasy with the narcissist. The narcissist says, I'm a genius, no? I'm an amazing genius. And the other party in the shared fantasy should say, yes, of course you are an amazing genius. That's the job of the partner in the fantasy. So the fantasy is shared.
Just like validation and admiration he needs.
Yes, it's a little more than validation because it has to do with something called reality testing. It's like telling the narcissist you are not crazy, you're not insane, you're not imagining things, you're not delusional. Everything is true. Everything you think is true about yourself, about others. So it's about restoring reality testing, restoring the narcissist's belief that he's perceiving reality correctly. So it's a little more than validation. It's more powerful than validation. The minute this happens, the minute the narcissist finds you, let's assume the narcissist found you, okay, and he chose you, and now he thinks you can be a partner in the shared fantasy. That minute, you become the narcissist's mother. The narcissist converts you into a mother figure, a maternal figure. And the narcissist expects you to be his mother. At the same time, the narcissist offers you to be your mother. So there is what I call dual mothership. You become the narcissist's mother, and you begin to see the narcissist as a child. You begin to perceive the narcissist as a wounded child, a child in need, a child who is looking for love, a child who is crying, a child who is traumatized, a child who is wounded and injured and traumatized, and you want to hold the child, you want to protect the child, you want to love the child. So the narcissist makes you his mother. But at the same time, the narcissist becomes your mother. He regresses you. He infantilizes you. He makes you a baby again. And then he loves you the way a mother should. He loves you unconditionally. Or at least he convinces you that he loves you unconditionally. Actually, he doesn't. But he's good at convincing. So he convinces you that his love for you is unconditional because you are perfect. So he idealizes you. Mm-hmm. He love bombs you. He tells you that you're amazing. You're drop dead gorgeous. You're hyper intelligent. You're the best thing that ever happened to him. He never felt this way with anyone else, etc., etc. You can do no wrong. And so now that he has idealized you, you became a baby. Because that's what mothers do with babies. They idealize them. And he became your mother. He's giving you unconditional love. And he is giving you access to your idealized image through his eyes. He makes you fall in love with your idealized image through his gaze. You fall in love with the way that he sees you. Yeah. You become addicted. He sees you, he's so focused on you, like laser, and he makes you like a goddess, and you become addicted. You need it. You need it all the time. You want to be seen as a goddess, It's intoxicating. Mm-hmm. So all these mechanisms are working. At the same time, he's your child. At the same time, he's your mother. At the same time, you're his mother. At the same time, you fall in love with yourself through his gaze. So you become dependent on him because only he can give you access to your idealized image. He has the monopoly on this. So gradually there is bonding. It is colloquially known as trauma bonding, but there is bonding that is taking place. At this stage, the narcissist accomplished goal number one. You belong to him. You're his property. You're his extension. You're an internal object. And you will stick around in the fantasy because he gives you so much. He gives you the feeling that you are a child again. He gives you a second chance with a good mother. He gives you, if you fall in love with your image, etc. It's difficult to live. So now that he feels comfortable that you're there, the next stage, he needs to find out if you are truly a good mother, because his original mother was not a good mother. She was what we call a dead mother. Dead mother is not dead physically, it is dead mentally. A dead mother is a mother who is selfish, a mother who is depressed, a mother who is absent emotionally, a mother who is cold, a mother who is psychopathic. So these kind of mothers, they cannot give emotional sustenance to the child. They destroy the capacity to attach. So they create insecure attachment style, and so on. These are dead mothers. So now he has to see whether you're a good mother, good enough mother, or dead mother. He needs to test you. Mm-hmm. How to test you? He abuses you.
Oh, that's why.
He abuses you. He's testing you. He's pushing the envelope. If you stick around, if you don't leave, you don't abandon him, never mind what he does to you, then you love him unconditionally and you're a good mother. So the first stage of abuse has to do with testing. He's testing you. He will cheat on you and then he will wait. Will you leave me? If you leave me, you're a bad mother. But if you stick around, if you stay, it means you love me, never mind what I do to you. It means you love me unconditionally. Doesn't depend on my behavior or my performance. And that means you're a good mother. Now I feel safe that you're a good mother. We can move on to the next stage. And the next stage in the shared fantasy is about separating from you. What happened to the narcissist in his early childhood is that he was not able to separate from parental figures, especially the mother. He was not able to become an individual. So now he's trying again with a new mother. There's a new mother. He's trying again. And he's trying again by separating from you. What he failed with his original mother, he's trying with you. But how to separate from you? Why to separate from you? You're perfect. You're idealized. You're godlike. Why to separate from you? So he needs to change the way he sees you. If you're perfect, if you are super gorgeous, if you're hyper intelligent, if you're amazing in bed, then why to leave you? It doesn't make sense to leave you. It doesn't make sense to separate from you. So he needs to begin to see you in a different way. So he begins to devalue you. He begins to see you as a negative person.
In his mind.
Someone who can do no harm. Sorry? In his mind, yes. He's changing the internal object from idealized to persecutory. So in his mind, you're becoming stupid, ugly, hostile, enemy, bad, making wrong decisions, having bad friends, bad influence. Everything is bad about you. He completely converts the internal object from idealized to devalued, to bad object. And then, of course, because now you're a bad object, of course, he has to separate from you. And he discards you. It is a symbolic reenactment, replay of the early childhood experiences, the early childhood conflict. And that's why the shared fantasy is totally not dependent on you. You have nothing to do with any of this. It's inexorable. Inexorable in English means it's moving ahead and you cannot stop it. So it's inexorable and it's automatic and it's autonomous. And once you set it in motion, you cannot stop it. So never mind what you do. You could be the best partner, most loving, most amazing, most compassionate, most empathic, most everything. You will be devalued and discarded because this has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the mechanism of the shared fantasy. It's like this huge device that is playing in the narcissist's mind and takes over. This is more or less the picture. More or less, there are many other intricacies and complications, but that's more or less the picture.
Narcissism isn't obvious, it's insidious. And if you don't know the patterns, or if you haven't encountered such a pattern before, it's very hard to understand the cycle and the beginning and the end and the discard. So this causes, I think, cognitive dissonance for the victims or the survivors. But when I realized after the search, they are like using a playbook. They are in all continents, in all genders, in all races. They are always using the same words, same phrases, same actions, but even the words are same. So they are making a playbook, or how can they be same like that?
Playbook is a bad word because a playbook implies that you're in control of the process. It's conscious choice.
They don't know anything.
Nothing. They are completely captive. The hostages of the project, the mechanism. It's a mechanism. It's a device. The narcissist is like a programmed robot. And the program is very, very limited program. It's not like artificial intelligence where the program can develop and acquire new skills and new information. No, the program is very, very limited.
And
it's a tunnel program. So
before and they will do this after every time until they die then.
Yes. And they are not aware of their motivations. They are aware of their behavior, but they're not aware of their motivations. And when they say something which is counterfactual, which is not a fact, they don't know that they're lying. They believe it. So that's why we say that narcissists don't gaslight. Narcissists don't lie. They confabulate. There's a big difference. Confabulation is a clinical term in psychology. Confabulation is when you lie, but you believe your own lies. When you fantasize and believe the fantasy. When you make a promise and you believe you will keep it. So narcissists don't future fake. All these gaslighting, future faking is psychopathic. This is what psychopaths do. Because a psychopath can tell the difference between reality and fantasy. Narcissists cannot. A psychopath can tell the difference between internal and external. Narcissists cannot. A psychopath is goal-oriented. He wants something specific from you. A narcissist wants all of you. A psychopath would use you and walk away. A narcissist would not even use you. He would use your internal object within a theater production, within a movie that is playing in his head. You're not relevant at all there. So that's why I'm laughing when I see online victims are saying the narcissist chose us. We were chosen because I was chosen because I'm kind and I'm empathic and I'm nice. You're irrelevant and you're interchangeable.
Yeah.
And you're nothing to the narcissist.
And I think we choose the narcissist because I saw something. The narcissist invites everyone to their shared fantasy, but they take the ones who accepted invitation.
Yes.
As long as you stay, you accept the shared fantasy. But when you want to discard, they will change the mother and they will continue the shared fantasy. So it's not about you.
No, not about you.
But something is about us. Self-love or self-respect is about us. And we must strengthen that part. For example, when you say internal objects, if a narcissistic mother doesn't have consciousness and lack of object relations, the baby and the mother relations, how can be? Because the baby becomes the narcissist or have another disorder.
So here is something. There is good reason to believe that narcissistic personality disorder, and there is a big difference between narcissistic personality disorder and narcissistic style. And many people online confuse the two. But let's say someone with a disorder, with narcissistic personality disorder. These are rare people. We're talking about 1 to 3% of the population, maybe. So there is good reason to believe that narcissism is hereditary. In other words, it involves genetic mutations. Or there are also good reasons to believe that narcissism involves brain abnormalities, structural abnormalities or functional abnormalities of the brain. However, unfortunately, we don't have any serious studies that support these assumptions. We don't have any studies that support this. We do have a lot of studies over 120 years that connect childhood abuse and trauma to the emergence of pathological narcissism later in life. So this is the current state of knowledge. There are so-called studies, they are laughable, and of course, they don't constitute any proof of anything. Right now, we cannot connect narcissism to genetics, and we cannot connect narcissism to brain abnormalities. Although I repeat again, I firmly believe that these are true, that these elements exist. So when a mother is a narcissist, what she has with her child is a shared fantasy. And ultimately, she would devalue the child and discard the child, exactly like in a typical shared fantasy later in life. The child would not be able to separate from such a mother because the mother perceives the child as an internal object, not external. And the child consequently will not be able to individuate, to become an individual. And the child will not be able to learn object relations because the first object relations is with mother. the deficiencies, the damage is massive, very massive. A child of a narcissistic mother has to somehow compensate for the absence of the mother, in effect. And to compensate for this, the child uses fantasy and imagination and so on, and in some cases comes up with a false self. For example, in borderline personality disorder and narcissistic personality disorder. Not all children react this way, which is why I believe that there is a genetic component. So we can have 10 children grow in the same family with the same mother, and only one of them would become a narcissist or a borderline, while the other 9 would be perfectly healthy. So, but the mother is crucial. Even if you're born with the genetic predisposition to become a narcissist, let's assume that you have the genetic template. It is the environment that triggers, expresses these genes. These genes are triggered by the environment. So it's a kind of epigenetic view. One thing I think is important to clarify: what is abuse? When is the mother not good enough? When is she failing? What is abuse? So when we say abuse, we immediately think about sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, psychological abuse, and so on. And these are, of course, forms of abuse. And they're very traumatizing forms. But there are many other forms of abuse. Many. For example, a mother who is overprotective, protects her child too much. This mother does not allow the child to be in touch with reality and with peers. So it's a big damage. That's abuse. A mother who idolizes the child, spoils the child, pampers the child, pedestalizes the child, tells the child, you're perfect, you can do no wrong, everyone else is guilty, you're never guilty. That's bad preparation for life. That's abusive. A mother who instrumentalizes the child. A mother who says, I had a dream to be an actor, actress, now you will be the actress. Okay, so you will realize my dreams, my fantasies that I failed to realize. It's using the child as an instrument. A mother who parentifies the child. A mother who says, I'm helpless, I need you. You should be my mother. I cannot be your mother, but you will be my mother. So this is called parentification or adultification. That's also a form of abuse, and I can continue. There are many, many forms of abuse. Many people say, why do I keep saying mother, mother, mother? Why not father? Because, first of all, I'm not alone. The biggest scholars, like Bowlby and so on, they said the same. Freud, many others. The thing is that until age 36 months, the father has minimal role, maybe nothing, close to nothing, until 36 months. The mother is the absolutely dominant figure. And when I say mother, it has nothing to do with the sex of the person, with the genitalia. When I say mother, I mean the person who is fulfilling maternal functions. So if you grow up only with your father and you have no mother, your father is your mother. It doesn't matter what you have between your legs. What matters is what functions you fulfill. So this is what when I say mother. But until age 36 months, the mother is critical, and only the mother. Only. And it is the damage until age 36 months that gives rise to pathological narcissism. After age 3, the father enters the picture. The father teaches skills. The father socializes the child. The father teaches the child how to behave in society. The father teaches the child sexual scripts, and so on. So the father then becomes a dominant figure. And if the father is bad, dysfunctional, then of course there is damage to the child as well. But it's not the same kind of damage. Daddy issues do not give rise to narcissism. Mommy issues gives rise, but daddy issues, no. If you have issues with your father, you will suffer. You will have many mental health problems, absolutely. But narcissism is not one of them. If you had issues with your mother, there is a likelihood, not very big, but likelihood, that you may develop narcissism. That's the difference. That's why I keep saying mother, mother, mother.
Yeah, mothers, and I have 2 sons, so it's very important to know about these disorders and psychology. And one of the other questions you told about the shared fantasy and the toxic cycle, and it's going like a circle. It starts love bombing, and then the bad part starts. Then the hoover comes sometimes, and it can develop hundreds of times again and again. But if you discard the narcissist, not him or her or your parent, it doesn't matter. When you discard the narcissist, does it change something? Do they understand something is wrong with them, or they are just
No.
perfect
Yeah.
always? There is
Definitely not.
Okay.
He's a perfect entity. He's godlike. Everything is your fault. This is called alloplastic defense. Alloplastic defense means everything is your fault. No, there's no chance of transformation. That's totally out of
There
the
is
question.
never a chance for transformation.
Yeah.
Self-aware narcissists, they are talking about these, for example. There is nothing like that.
We can, in therapy, modify the narcissist behaviors. Teach the narcissist to behave differently, to be less antagonistic, less antisocial, less abrasive, less unpleasant, less exploitative. We can teach the narcissist to behave differently. This is called behavior modification. However, it doesn't touch the core of narcissism. So the narcissist remains disempathic and callous and so on. And it's short-term. So if you teach a narcissist, if you modify the narcissist behavior, you have to do it every 6 months, like maintenance of a car, you know? If you don't do it, he goes back. He goes back to the way he was. And you have to start from zero. By the way, half of all narcissists are women. Until the 1980s, until 25 years ago, we believed that 3/4 of narcissists were men and 1/4 were women. We believed that. But now we know that this was actually a cultural gender bias. And in effect, half of all narcissists are women. So whenever I say he, it's a she also.
Yeah, of course.
So the narcissist, there are ways to modify the narcissist behavior. For example, you can challenge the narcissist's grandiosity. You can tell him, you can't do that. And he will prove to you that you can do it. He can do it. And then his behavior will change. So it's easy to manipulate narcissists because they are 2 years old.
Yeah.
Narcissists the mental age, the emotional age of a narcissist is 2 years old. And then people say, wait a minute. If he's 2 years old, how can he be president of the United States? Because there is a distinction between what we call episodic memory and semantic memory. The narcissist is discontinuous. He doesn't have continuity. He has memory gaps. These are known as dissociative gaps. He doesn't have a core identity. He doesn't have a functional self. He cannot read other people properly because he lacks empathy and he has no positive emotions, has no access to positive emotions. So he's very, very deficient person. But he has good semantic memory. Episodic memory is memory of your life. Semantic memory is memory of how to do things. So he has very good semantic memory. How to be a professor of psychology. How to be a president of the United States.
Or something else.
How to drive a car. He has all this, you know, but he doesn't have episodic memory and he doesn't have a self.
Autobiographic memory. For example, from the morning to the night, they have gaps in their memory.
Yes. Narcissists have huge memory gaps. I think from my work, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've worked with well over 200 people who were diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and I have the world's largest database of narcissists. I have 2,300 people diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder who were interviewed and are interviewed in intervals. So I have a longitudinal database. So what I see convinced me, what I've seen convinced me that the dissociation in narcissism is even more severe than in borderline. In borderline personality disorder, if you're exposed to stress or to tension or to anxiety or to abandonment, real or imagined, or to rejection, if you're exposed to what we call ego dystony, if you're exposed to something unpleasant, something as a borderline, you will dissociate. You will forget it. You will bury it. The narcissist has dissociation all the time. All the time. And in tests that I conducted, with myself included, I think narcissists forget about 90 to 95% of their lives. Completely forget. They have no
That's
access.
a good thing. Sometimes forgetting is a good thing sometimes.
Yeah, but then you cannot have an identity.
Yes, you don't have an identity. And
if you don't have memories, you don't have identity.
Can it be because of the multiple personality disorders? Because they have, I think, two identity. A good one who serves everyone. He is or she is very helpful to everyone. Perfect identity. And there is someone very bad and void or monster. There are two. Maybe their memories don't combine together. Can it be like this?
No. The dissociation in narcissism is a post-traumatic reaction. We know that people who've been traumatized, they develop dissociation. And while the borderline has 3 forms of dissociation, the narcissist has only amnesia. The narcissist has something that all human beings have. He has a persona. Persona is the mask that you wear when you interact with other people. So this is common, even in healthy people. The persona of the narcissist is a positive thing because he wants to elicit narcissistic supply. Yeah. So these are not 2 personalities. These are simply a persona. And in this sense, you also have a persona. And everyone has a persona. However, it is true that narcissism involves something which is very reminiscent of multiple personality disorder, because all narcissists have a true self and a false self. The false self is the narrative of the narcissist's godlike qualities and traits and accomplishments and so on. So it's a fantastic narrative. But it functions like a self. And then the narcissist has a true self. And the true self is basically very young and inactive. We say that it is psychodynamically inactive. But still, every narcissist has 2 selves. In this sense, yes, you could say that narcissism is a form of dissociative identity disorder, which used to be known as multiple personality disorder. And very often the narcissist has something that resembles switching in borderline, switching between self-states. So the narcissist can transition instantly from full of rage to being nice and holding and compassionate and so on. So this switching is indicative, I think, of dissociative structure of personality, which is therefore the same like multiple personality.
Does it make the memory gaps, maybe the splits or the switches, maybe?
Everything I've described is a post-traumatic reaction. When we are exposed to trauma, our personality fragments and breaks down. We have dissociative gaps and so on. So the root of all this is the trauma. The dissociation characterizes all the self-states of the narcissist. It's not that when he transitions from one self to another self, he has perfect memories of one self and perfect memories of another self. No, it's not like multiple personality. In multiple personality, dissociative identity disorder, especially in the extreme forms, because there are many forms. But in the extreme forms, when you transition from one personality to another, you don't have the memories of the first personality. You have the memories of the second. But you have the memories. They're there. It's not the case with the narcissist. Wherever the narcissist transitions, he doesn't have memory, or he has very little memory. It's not that he transitions and he has excellent memories here and excellent memories there, and he makes like a bridge. He moves from one. No, he has dissociative memory gaps here and memory gaps here. And whatever happens, he's always with memory gaps. And this is why I say that it is even more extreme than borderline. Because the narcissist has these huge memory gaps, he confabulates. He needs to explain to himself and to others what has happened. And so he comes up with plausible stories. He says, I was at home, and the next thing I remember, I was in my car. Okay, I was at home, then I was in my car. What happened? Probably I got up, I brushed my teeth, I ate breakfast, and I went to my car. Probably. It makes sense. Wait a minute, if it makes sense, it's a fact. So that's a fact. And don't argue with me. You have a video that I didn't do any of this? The video is wrong. I remember it clearly. I remember it 100%. So when you argue with a narcissist about what had happened, he will insist that his version of reality is the only one. And it is reminiscent of gaslighting. It looks like he's gaslighting you, but he's not gaslighting you. He simply believes that his reality is correct, is true.
He is protecting his reality that time.
Sorry?
He is protecting his reality that time.
Yes, he's very defensive. In general, narcissism is a fragility. It's fragile. It's vulnerable. So the narcissist is always defensive. The narcissist, for example, is hypervigilant. Narcissist all the time is asking, is she insulting me? Is she criticizing me? Does he disagree with me? Who will attack me now? It's always on the defensive. Narcissists have paranoid ideation. They are a bit paranoid and so on. And these are defenses. These are because the narcissist cannot afford the truth or reality. They're too much for him. And he needs to protect himself. And so the psychopath gaslights you because the psychopath knows the difference between reality and fantasy. Then he pretends the fantasy is reality, and he tells you your perception of reality is wrong and you're crazy, you're mentally ill. That's a psychopath. But the narcissist believes that what he's telling you is the absolute truth. So there's a big difference here. Gaslighting has to be premeditated and goal-oriented. That's gaslighting. That's the definition of gaslighting. There has to be intent. The intention is to destabilize you, to make you distrust yourself, to lose your belief in your ability to gauge reality, and you become dependent on the psychopath. The gaslighting makes you dependent. And then the psychopath can take your money, have sex with you, whatever. That's not a narcissist. Narcissist simply, as you said exactly, defends, protects his fragile internal space and his fragile view of reality. So narcissists know that something is wrong. People ask me if narcissists know that something is wrong. Yes, they know that something is wrong. They can't put their finger on it, and they would deny it, of course, if you tell them something's wrong with you. They would deny it. But deep inside, of course they know that something is wrong. If all your relationships fail all the time, no matter how narcissistic you are, ultimately, even the most thick-headed, thick-skulled narcissist realizes something is wrong.
Yeah, they can see the cycle maybe, but in the shared fantasy or in their fantasy world, they are not guilty, so they don't need to change and they continue the habit.
Yes, but that's a compensation. That means they feel that something is wrong, and then they say, no, nothing's wrong. It's her fault, it's his fault, nothing's wrong. The nothing is wrong part is a defense. It's a compensation. Deep inside, the narcissist is fragile and suspects that something is really wrong.
And my last question. We cannot discard our parents maybe, but we can discard our co-workers, siblings maybe, and our partners. When we understand that there is something wrong and there's a cycle and there's gaslighting, manipulation or something else, what do you advise to the ones who watch us now?
First of all, we can definitely discard our parents. Yeah, that's a myth.
Hard.
That's an excuse, in my view. When I hear people saying, I cannot discard my son, he's my son, she's my mother, I cannot discard her. That's nonsense, complete nonsense. It's an excuse to stay in touch. The victims are very creative and very imaginative, trying to find a reason to stay in touch, trying to find a way to stay in touch. Even fighting in court is a way to stay in touch. Even sharing custody is a way to stay in touch. Everything is a way to stay in touch. So she's my mother. That's an excuse to stay in touch. You want to stay in touch. You want to stay in touch because you did not become a victim by accident. You have a highly specific psychological profile. And you have a need to be a victim. There's a need there. And it's satisfied only by the narcissist. So you become addicted. And that's what we call trauma bonding. So trauma bonding is a form of self-harming. All victims of narcissistic abuse are self-harming people. Some people self-harm with cigarettes. They burn themselves. Some people cut themselves. Some people use narcissists instead of a cigarette. Or they use narcissists instead of a razor. And that's the way they self-mutilate. So I haven't seen my parents since 1996. My father died a few days ago.
Oh.
And I haven't seen them. Of course you can discard your parents. No question about it.
Yeah. Only solution is discarding.
No contact.
No.
I've developed, when I started all this, I started this whole mess in 1980s. So I came up with the language that is used today and so on. Many of the words and the phrases, hoovering and narcissistic abuse and so on, I invented these in the 1980s. And at the time, I invented a single strategy, and I called it no contact strategy, with 27 rules. So it's not so simple. It's 27 rules. Later on, I developed another 6. So in total, I developed 7. And then there was another guy, and he developed Grey Rock, which is an excellent strategy. It's not mine. There's another person developing. It's an excellent strategy. If you have to be in touch with the narcissist for some reason, and this should be extremely rare cases, then Grey Rock is your technique. In all other cases, you must immediately go no contact. And if you want to know how to go no contact, there are 27 rules. You can go on my YouTube channel, and there's a video, the no contact rules. And just follow these rules. Understand that you're your worst enemy. You're looking for any reason and excuse to remain in the shared fantasy. It's addictive. It's intoxicating. Even the drama is intoxicating. Even the drama. Even the ups and downs. Even the intermittent reinforcement. Even the unpredictability. Even the fear. Even fear is intoxicating. It's all chemicals, biochemicals. You became addicted to all this mess. You're an addict. So don't look for excuses to stay in the bar. Walk away, walk out. Even if it's your mother, even if it's your son, even if it's your daughter, even if it's your father, your husband, your children, your pastor, your boss, you need to walk away, you need to go no contact. And the reason is that narcissism is contagious. If you don't go no contact, gradually your personality will be transformed into that of a narcissist. And in CPTSD, in complex trauma, we know that there is this contagion effect, and that victims develop narcissistic and psychopathic behaviors and later on traits. The narcissist invades your mind. He brainwashes you. He installs in your mind an application, an introject, and he takes over you, and then he uses you as a puppet. And he's inside your mind even after he has left physically. He's still inside your mind. He's still talking to you. He's still brainwashing you. He's still denigrating you and manipulating you and so on and so forth. The more you're exposed to the narcissist, the more damage there is, and the longer the recovery and the healing. Cut it as soon as you can. And you should know the following. You know that it's a narcissist, and you've known it from the first 10 seconds of your first meeting. You were just denying it.
Yeah. Intuition tells the reality, but we don't want to see it. And we find
and you suppress your intuition because you're lonely, or because you are civilized, and it's not nice to judge people, or because, I don't know, because of what. But we have studies of what is known as the uncanny valley reaction. We have studies of this reaction, and it is conclusively they conclusively demonstrate that we have an adverse reaction to narcissists and psychopaths within the first few minutes. And this is known as the uncanny valley reaction. So listen to your intuition, to your gut instinct, and walk away as soon as you can, before you are infected. It's a virus.
And your body affects also. You have infections or bloating or depression, fatigue. You have so many other things coming. Intuition tells the truth in the first part, and you start to believe the external world, not the interior one. You start to stay in a focus area after.
I think there are two critical weapons against narcissistic contagion. One is to trust yourself. Your intuition is wrong 50% of the time when it comes to problems in the world. So about 50% of the time you're wrong. Your intuition is wrong. It's a flip of a coin. But your intuition about other people is right 90% of the time. When it comes to other people, your intuition is right. You should trust it immediately, without thinking. Number one, that's your main weapon, main protection. Number two, social network, family, friends, people you can talk to, people you can confide in, therapists. I know. Surround yourself with people and share. Surround yourself with people and share. So this is also another protection, massive protection. That's why narcissists try to isolate you. It's a main strategy of a narcissist, to isolate you. They criticize your family, they push away your friends. They make sure that finally you're all alone with the narcissist. And you're dependent on the narcissist. If not financially, then definitely emotionally, otherwise, and so on. So fight these two things. Victims don't trust themselves. That's how it starts. You don't trust yourself. You don't trust yourself to be your own good friend. You don't trust yourself to be alone. You don't trust yourself. So you need someone else. And this neediness is bad. Leads you to bad places, not only with narcissists. It's bad generally. As a strategy, it's bad.
That's right. And thank you, Professor Sanwagner. And if you want to learn more about narcissism and the other personality disorders, please go to Mr. Sanwagner's YouTube channel, and there are hundreds of videos about everything you can find. Thank you for attending. It was an honor for me. Then see you later. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time and for having me.